Okay, team. So we already have all of our dependencies in, and we're gonna start working a little bit on setting up the look and feel of our application, right? And this is gonna be an incremental process. But first, I want to show you something real quick. So in the repo for this tutorial, remember, in each lesson, I'm sharing in the description section, I'm sharing the branch that contains the code for each specific tutorial. More specifically, it contains the code that we produce in that specific lecture. So if at the end of the lecture things are not working for you, remember, I test everything before I wrap up the video. So if anything is not working for you, then you have to go back to that code, check the code, compare your code against mine, and I'm pretty sure you're not gonna have a problem at all. All right, I'm pretty sure you're gonna be able to find the problem within minutes. All right, so now in this same repository, there's a design folder. This design folder contains all the HTML design that we're gonna need for this project. All right, we're not gonna invest too much time doing HTML or CSS. We were here for React and Spring Boot. So I'm just gonna get those two out of our way. All right. Now, I need you guys, as I mentioned before, I need you guys to then perhaps clone this or copy and paste it, whatever you guys want to do. But just get that code, because again, I'm not gonna code this like line by line, at least not HTML. Cool. All right. So I'm just gonna put this away, and then what I'm gonna do then is I'm just gonna bring my design folder onto my project. Give me just one moment, guys. There should be a second. Okay. Sorry, guys, for the radio silence there, but I was just I have a lot of my folder structure there, and I just didn't want to confuse you guys with so many files. So basically, I brought the design here, the design folder that you guys will be able to get from Git. And basically, guys, what you need to do is get the project board and get the project task form. All right, just these two here. And if I open this with Live Server, which is one of the extensions I recommend that you guys install if you guys are using VS Code, then what that does is that it serves up the HTML. And as you can see here, this is basically the design that we're going to implement as per the demo that I gave you guys in the very first lecture. Now, if you go here, create project task, then it takes you to the form that we're going to use, which is the second HTML file there, right? So please make sure that you get these designs, because again, we're not going to invest any time writing a bunch of HTML. All right, so just go get that design so you guys can follow along. All right, so pause the video now and go do that. Okay, cool. So I'm assuming that you guys are back. So the next thing that we are going to do is that we're going to create our first component. So here in the source folder, we're gonna create a new folder, which we're gonna call, let me see what name I gave it in the course components. All right. I just want to double check everything, guys. Sorry. Now in components, we're going to create our first component, which is going to be called project board. And in this lecture, we're going to talk a little bit about JSX and other cool stuff that we need to know. All right. Now, when you create a component in React, you need to determine whether or not, and amongst other things, but on the basic side of things, at least you need to know whether or not this is a functional component or if it's a class-based component. The difference, I'll let you guys do your own research on this, but the core difference is that the class-based component can connect to the state of the application, and you can connect to it, you can receive profs, like you can do a little more advanced things with a class-based component. Now with functional-based components, you can pass it profs, but as far as I understand, you cannot really connect to the state, to the store, and you cannot really use lifecycle hooks, as far as I know, at least as in my experience, you cannot. So that's why. And again, if I'm putting my foot in my mouth here, feel free to correct me. But right now, basically, what we want to use a class-based component, right? So again, if you installed all of the extensions that I recommend that you guys install in order to create the boilerplate for a class-based component, all you have to do is react cc or rcc, and as you can see, this is the extension, one of the extensions that I showed you at the beginning, and this actually does some imports for you and basically creates the body of the component. So if you click tab, rcc tab, then it just creates this for you. Right now, I am going to do a little refactor that, in my opinion, makes things a little cleaner when it's time for us to connect to the store and do map state to props and all those fun things that I'm going to be covering later on. I believe this is how I learned it, so that's why I do it. Remember, with React, there are a lot of ways of doing the same thing as if with any other technology out there, but React being a library for the most part, there are different styles. If you know a different way of doing this, if you prefer a different way of doing this, go right ahead. All right, just say you're gonna have to respect that this is the way I do it. That's all. I'm not claiming that it's the best way. But this way works. That's it. That's all I have to say about that one. All right. So now that we have this here, remember, in a React component, one of the cool things about React is that you can actually have a flavor, and I call it a flavor of HTML, which is called JSX. All right, and JSX, as I mentioned before, is just like a flavor of HTML, in my opinion. I call it a flavor again. That allows you to have HTML code within JavaScript code. Remember, this is a JavaScript class, literally. This is a JavaScript class, and we're going to put HTML code in here. All right. Now, there are subtle differences that I'm going to explain as we start touching those things between JSX and HTML, but the core difference, the core thing that you always have to keep in mind is the following. And I'm just gonna go to the project board HTML first before we even do any of that, and I am going to just copy and paste from here, and please mind the comments in the HTML file. It says the project board start here, mind other components when copy and pasting, because we have the backlog and we also have a few project tasks in there, and we're gonna obviously split some of those into components. So just copy and paste all of that, and make sure that you copy up until it says project board ends here. All right, and just copy and paste up until there, and then let's go to the project board and we're gonna paste that here. And as you can see, we have a bunch of issues here. The first issue that we have here is that it doesn't take HTML comments. All right, with the little arrows here, as I had it here on the project board, it doesn't take HTML comments. All right, now I'm gonna delete the one for the backlog starts here because I don't think we need that one there. But then I'm gonna actually tell you how to do comments in JSX. Now, in order to do comments in JSX, you need to first of all turn it into a JavaScript expression, and for that you need to surround it with curly braces. Everything that's surrounded in curly braces becomes, just in layman's terms, JavaScript code, so that way you can just comment it out like this. Okay, and now I'm just gonna do that because we do need to keep those comments there, just because we're gonna be we need to know, let's say, our coordinates, and this will help us navigate through this fair bit of HTML code that we have here. And again, this is why I didn't want to do HTML, because as you can see, this would have taken a lot of time, and this is already taking a bit of time, but again, this is part of what we're doing here anyway, so it's cool. So just gonna comment that out for now, guys. I suggest you do the same. And again, this is gonna help you when we start populating project tasks. Okay, so for now, just comment that out. And as you can see, this works. This href here needs to be in quotes, and everything looks good. Now, the other thing that you need to keep in mind, which is one of the main differences between JSX and HTML, if you were to again say that they're different, just a little bit, in my opinion, is that when you're using JSX code, you cannot use class. You cannot use that attribute. So what you need to do is actually change all of those attributes that say class within the HTML code, and you need to switch it to the following. And I'm just selecting them all, and I'm just gonna call it class name. Very important. It has to be class name. It cannot be class. It might run, but it's gonna give you console log errors and stuff. All right. So perfect. So here we have everything switched to class name. How I did that, just for those of you that are curious, all I did was I highlighted this, and then I said, since I'm using a Mac, Command D as in David, and then every time I press D while holding Command, it will just select everything that's like class name, that's the same, obviously, right? If you're using Windows, I would assume it's Control D, but again, I don't know. I've never done this in Windows. All right, cool. So now that we have this here in place, then the next thing that we're gonna do is create another component, and this component we're gonna call it Navbar. So this is basically our Navbar. That's all it is. So I'm just gonna create a new file. I'm just gonna call it navbar.js. And again, this one's also going to be a class-based component, right? Actually, you know what? We're not really going to do anything with state with the navbar this time around. So this one can actually be a functional-based component, which is RFC tab, all right? If you don't have this extension, then you obviously have to see if there's any extensions for the text editor that you're using. If not, then you're probably going to have to type this out. Now for navbar, what we're going to do is that we're going to just get rid of this, and then we're going to go to the project board.html, and if you scroll up here, then you see that the navbar component start here, and it's clearly delimited where it starts and ends, so you can just copy and paste that there. And again, we need to do a refactor of changing everything from class to class name, so this thing works. Cool. All right, so now that we have that in place, then we're just gonna do a last change so that we can actually see this displayed. And for this, we're gonna go to app.js, and I'm going to get rid of this here, this h1 here. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to import the components that we just created, right? The navbar and the project board. And all you need to do is surround this as if it was like a tag, and then you need to do navbar. And again, if you're using the extensions that are recommended, this is going to auto import. If not, you guys have to come here and import this here. I'm going to import the navbar, and I'm going to import the project board component that we just created. And what this does is the same as here. Let me show you, actually. Just like you're bringing the whole app.js here, and remember, we discussed this, you're bringing this component here so it gets rendered. Now, all the components that are within app.js are going to be rendered as well, and those two components for now are navbar and project board. All right, so basically this is how you bring a component to the main, say, meeting place of our application, which is in the end app.js. And remember, all of our routing is going to happen here. So now with that in place, we're going to save this. All right, and I'm just going to do my npm start, and I hope that there aren't any problems, and there are, because I'm not in the right directory. Remember, you need to be on your React directory. Remember, you need to do ls, and you need to see your package.json. Okay, and then you can go and run npm start, and then we should see this here, and this looks really good. This button's a little off because I think I want this on the far right side. Let me see real quick. I don't want to waste a whole lot of your time doing. Let me see. Okay, so I don't think I need this anymore here, but I don't think that's the problem. Yeah, it's just not displaying where I want it, but not to worry. I'm pretty sure I can fix that real quick. I'm not gonna waste your time with HTML. That's not really a concern. All right, so this is it for now. You should at least be able to see what the app looks like. Now we have the layout, so now we can start working on some other cooler things. Thank you, guys.